talk to us maybe about the second half, in particular the fourth quarter?
Yeah, Coach Schaefer made a couple of adjustments at halftime defensively. I thought it gave us a really good chance to go on a couple of runs there. We started getting stops that we were able to turn into some transition buckets. And then I think we started playing a little bit harder. We were stuck in the mud for a few possessions there in that second quarter. You know, we talked about it in the press conference leading up. We were worried about how do we adjust to everybody telling us we had a good game against Tennessee. I think there was some of that. But when we talked about what we had at stake tonight, and again, I just asked Jerry, I'm not sure we're going to know this, but there's a chance we're going to wake up in fourth place tomorrow in this league if everything happened. I don't know what happened in the other games yet, but if mathematically we could conceivably be up there at the top at a 4-2. And that just you saw a little shot of energy go through the kids in the locker room, and then they carried that over through the second half. We made enough shots to pull away, and thought we got good efforts from a lot of different kids. Breaking in the new guy.
So it's kind of obvious why you switched from the zone there after the first quarter, but in the fourth quarter it was like every couple of possessions you were switching from man to zone. You know, was there any triggers that caused you to do switches or what?
We were just trying to stretch the game out a little, make sure they took a little extra time looking over at their coach on what they're in, maybe trying to organize, and if that saved us 10 or 15 seconds, because I have a really hard time getting my team to slow down, if y'all haven't noticed that. And I'm not sure I want them to, but I do want them to take better shots sometimes when you have the lead. So when we got up 16, it was like, if we go from man to zone, they're going to have to take a few seconds. And I thought it confused them just long enough to take a few seconds and make the game, get it to a manageable number of possessions.
Can you talk about, you know, just how effective Malika was at the top of that, being able to get tips whenever they were confused?
Yeah, and it made them pass it 2 or 3 extra times too. You know, even if they didn't get a steal or a tip, they were passing it to places they didn't want to be in the second half. I thought, you know, for that kid to play 39 minutes, that's hard to do. She got really tired at the end of the first half. I should have gotten her a sub, but I was reluctant to do that. But she'll get a good massage tomorrow. She'll be okay.
Come in. It's our A edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. It's our Friday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. We come to you each and every day here on KDSJ 479 from 1 to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday. And we got a real good show today here on the A. My producer, Demi Guy, why don't you just tell them just a few of the good guests we're going to have on and what we'll be talking about. You got one main one.
I'm going to leave that to you.
So I tried to give him a little of the shine, but I guess, you know, he's trying to stay in his lane. So
Nah, see, you did all the work, so I got to give you the credit. You set up an amazing show today, so I got to give you a lot of credit for today's show.
We'll be talking SEC Big 12 Challenge, Arkansas, Texas Tech at 1:15 with our good buddy, as always, to talk fastest 40, Arkansas Democrat Gazette, Scotty Bordenland. And then we're going to follow up with the new and former Arkansas defensive line coach, new defensive line coach at South Carolina University, John Scott Jr. will be joining us and just telling us just how hard of a decision it was to move on to the university, move on from Arkansas to South Carolina. What all went into that? We'll find out Coach Scott's reasons as to why he made that decision. And then we're going to follow it up and stay in South Carolina and talk even more Gamecocks with our good buddy Will Gunner on Spurs and Feathers. We're going to see just the impact that he thinks the addition of John Scott will be to Will Muschamp's staff. We'll get that take, and then we're going to talk a little SEC basketball and what's the outlook for the Gamecocks in the way too early preseason football look as spring ball heads up on us. But I want to go over to my good buddy Demetrius. Arkansas women 72-61 winners over the Alabama Lady Crimson Tide. Arkansas moves to 15-5, 4-2 in the SEC, which is good for tied for third place with the Texas A&M and the Kentucky Wildcats. They trail South Carolina and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. But in year two, under Coach Mike Neighbors, have to be feeling pretty good if you're a women's Razorback fan, don't you think, Dick?
Definitely. You know, the women were one of those programs where, as far as the fan base, there's really wasn't a lot of support at the beginning of the year. So I'm really excited to really see all the hard work that these women have been putting in on and off the court to really finally get that support. You know, we were talking off the air how some things have changed in the media, how even guys are having to come out and take more pictures of the women, and I think they deserve it. You know, and that just shows you how big winning can be. And I think if we can start winning amongst some of the bigger programs like football and basketball, I think Arkansas can be a special place when all those things kind of align simultaneously.
Big-time shooter Alexis Toll-Free went 4 out of 8. 4 out of 7 from the three-point line, finished with 13 points. Senior sensation. I mean, Malcolm Monk is having a senior year that you dream of having. I mean, the young ladies are playing at such a high level and just seems to control each and every game during conference season. Really playing big. She finished with 16 points. Sophomore center back up, Taylor Thomas, 15 points. Jalen Mason, I call her baking soda, Demetrius. She just is always doing the little things that need to get done to preserve wins for this ball club. Jalen had 9 defensive rebounds, Demetrius. 9 defensive rebounds from a guard. That has to speak volumes from just doing the things that other people may not do. Jalen Mason, and I go back to the game and the big shot she hit Monday night there in Knoxville. That three-pointer might have been the biggest shot of the entire game, but you just continue to watch this young lady and watch this ball club, Demetrius. You got seniors like Bailey Zimmerman, juniors, Kiera Williams. She's not the biggest center, but I mean, she may play the biggest when it's game time in the post, and she's always pulling down multiple double-digit rebound games. But I think they're only going to get better. What do you think takes place with Arkansas as we're about to have on Scotty Borderland? Momentarily, we'll be letting you hear audio from Coach Mike Anderson, his outlook on tomorrow's ball game. But what are some of the keys, in your opinion, Demetrius, with this Big 12 SEC Challenge versus Texas Tech tomorrow to help Arkansas possibly get out with another win and start to continue to build even more momentum?
I think it really starts with sticking to what works. They've seen a lot of success with the ball in Daniel Gafford's hand, and I think that's a really big emphasis that a lot of people have been making note of that they really want to see Gafford with the ball in his hands more, whether that be him passing the ball or making a move to the basket. And I think they really have to continue that. And then going to Isaiah Joe, and he has to continue that streak. I believe you said he went 7 of 12 yesterday on this week's ball game, and I think he really has to continue that streak shooting well, because he's that X factor when they're kind of getting that little slump where we need a few points. He always comes out with a little shooting streak, so I think that's really crucial to what happens in this week's ball game.
No, and I think Isaiah Joe leads the SEC in three-point field goal percentage to this point. But we're going to take a quick break. We caught up with Coach Anderson for media availability yesterday to get us ready. And you guys ready for this road test at Texas Tech versus the Red Raiders on Saturday at 5 p.m. But we also, when we get back, we're going to talk more Fastest 40. And he'll be followed up by Scotty Borderland of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479.
On Saturday, early game. Of course, it's for the conference rights. It's a big game on our schedule, and we get away from SEC play. But we know that Texas Tech, coached by Coach Beard, he's done an excellent job there, really just coming in and creating a great culture, defensive-minded team. They're one of the tops in defensive, I think, holding people to field goal percentages and scoring and three-point percentages. So it's going to be one of those games where it's a grind-out game, and if it's at their pace, then I think that favors them. And of course, we like to hopefully push the tempo. And in order to do that, you got to be able to make shots, and so you can get into your defense. But very good basketball team. Culliver, probably first team. He maybe even be an All-American. I know he's going to be an All-Big 12 player. He's a sophomore. They have a lot of grad transfers. The Mooney kid, very good basketball player. The Owens kid, 6'10" kid. So it's a team that's well balanced. Obviously, they have a featured guy and Culver, but I think they have some really good players on their basketball team. They play extremely well at home, and they're coming off some losses very much as we had as well. So it's another opportunity for us to get better and find out a little bit more about our basketball team. Can we can our defense travel? Can we travel? Especially getting into a better rhythm in the second half against Missouri last night. So again, it's a great opportunity, it's a great challenge, but it's a great opportunity for our guys to have an opportunity to play against someone out of conference, and it's kind of interesting because you're grinding, and all of a sudden you jump out of conference play, but it's the next game on our schedule.
Mike, this is going to be in a 5-game span, this will be the 4th team you've played that's currently in the top 25. How tough a stretch is that, especially for a young team? I guess what are the positives and the negatives of having such a tough schedule right now?
Well, I guess the positive, you're playing some of the best. If you want to be one of the best, then you got to play those teams and to find out where you are. But it's a great opportunity as well. The challenge is with a young basketball team that you want to make sure the psyche is they're playing with confidence. I think that's the biggest thing, to play with confidence. So that's why every game's a big game, and that was a big game against Missouri. So our guys go in there with a better mindset going in. But they got to understand they're playing against a tremendous defensive basketball team, and it's going to take a great effort. And I think so playing those games, I think they know the kind of effort they got to do it, and they got to do it for 40 minutes. It can't be 20 minutes, and you can't go in there and getting off to a slow start. Again, they're good, and they're good at home, as all teams are.
Offensively, is Mason Jones kind of going through what Isaiah did a few games ago?
It just seemed like he ain't making some shots. He missed some chippy layups. And with a guy that scores like that, you got to do something to get yourself going, especially early on, whether it be getting to the free throw lines or making a layup. But he's doing some other things I think contributing, and just probably pressing a little bit. Next game, hopefully he'll show up for us, because we'll need him to show up. I think Isaiah's.
Welcome back. It's our Friday edition. It's our A edition of On the Hill, Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio, as we like to bring it to you live each and every day here on KDSJ 479 from 1 to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday. And we let you hear audio, media availability that we get each and every week leading up to the ball game with Coach Mike Anderson. And I want to elaborate on it more, but I want to do this with my good buddy that covers the Fastest 40 for us here on the Hill and for the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, Scotty Borderland. Scotty, welcome back to OTH, my man.
Thanks for having me. I didn't know if I was going to make it on time, but got here just perfect timing.
You're part of the Fastest 40, so I knew you'd make it on time. Let's talk about it, Scotty. We had a chance to meet with Coach Anderson, and he felt pretty good by the way his ball club responded, coming off 4 losses, versus Missouri. I felt like it was a grit win, a total team effort. Now you got to go on the road and continue to build more momentum versus a very good but yet struggling Texas Tech team. What do you think Arkansas has to do on Saturday in Lubbock to hopefully try to steal a road win?
Well, they got to continue what they did on Wednesday night against Missouri and just find a way to create turnovers and turn those turnovers into points. I think Arkansas did that really well the other night. I think they turned 24 Missouri turnovers into 27 points. So I don't know if that's going to happen on Saturday, but you've got to be able to turn the ball over. And when you do, you got to get out and run in transition. You got to get some easy buckets when Texas Tech's half court defense isn't set, because their Texas Tech's defense is tops in the country in terms of defensive efficiency. So they're really good. They haven't allowed teams to score more than a point per possession just once all season. So they're really good. Just if you can make it more of an up and down game than what Texas Tech wants, I think that's the big key.
Which leads me into the next question. As I was watching the game Thursday, and I've watched the previous 4 losses, it seemed like Arkansas let teams get them in that half-court set offense, which is, for a young team, not a recipe most of the times for a lot of success. Arkansas, when they're active on defense, you could see that they get out in transition, which enhances all those trailing three-pointers that Isaiah is able to connect on, and also gets in transition, and you see a lot of layups and attacking at the rim. Is that the type of team Arkansas has to be, a type of team that your defense has to create your offense?
Yeah, it has to be because I've talked or I've written about, and I know we've talked about it before. Arkansas is pretty average offensively this year, like more so, it's a lot more average um, than what Mike's accustomed to having. I guess you can't even compare the offenses the last couple of years to this one. But yeah, they've got to get out in transition, and the bench guards I think are going to play a big role. They're defensive minded, and like Keyshawn hasn't strung together a couple really good defensive games or offensive games lately. Like that's kind of been an issue with him, but I like what he brings. Like his hands are active, and he's pretty good moving his feet and staying in front of guys. And Desi's the same way. He had a big game the other night. Um, Against Missouri. So those bench guards are going to be big, and just deflections are going to be huge. You got to throw Texas Tech off their rhythm offensively. They're not great on that end of the floor, but you got to create turnovers and run in transition, and that's when Isaiah Joe and Mason Jones can be really dangerous when they kind of get lost in transition. Well, we've talked about that quite a bit, but that's really big.
Scotty, when you have the offensive output that Jalen Harris was able to give to this ball club on Wednesday night. For the first time, I saw a shot where there wasn't a lot of hesitation, and I believe it was a three-pointer that he hit. Talk about if Jalen's able to continue to gain confidence in that jump shot, be it mid-range, how much more pressure will that take off of Daniel, Mason, Isaiah, and even slightly to a little degree, guys like Keyshawn and Desi and Reggie Chaney? How will Jalen's progress continue to help this ball club?
Yeah, if he can knock down a 3-point shot, that's pretty huge. That gives you another weapon that teams have to respect. Like I don't think that teams really, I don't know that they exactly step out to Jalen when he wants to pull a three. Like they're probably just going to let him have it just based on percentages. If you're playing the numbers game, but like if he can knock down the perimeter jump shot, and it's going to open up Dan, especially when they're on the same side of the floor, because his man's not all too worried about Jalen pulling the three, and so he can sag off, kind of prevent the entry feed to Dan. So that's enormous. I mean, you get, and Jalen, you're right. He did play one of his best games of the year, I thought, the other night. He was really aggressive offensively. He had that big dunk where he just kind of just flew through the air, threw it down, and he had another six assist game without a turnover. Arkansas is 4-0 in games when he's got 6+ assists, no turnovers. So he's a crucial part of the offense. If he can knock down a jump shot, that's a huge plus.
I know we've talked about the youth of this basketball team multiple times here on the show, countless times when we're at the arena and at places. But when I looked out there in Arkansas's big run on Wednesday night, Scotty, I saw 2 sophomores and 3 freshmen. You didn't see the older guys, Adrio or Gabe. Do you get the sense that Coach Anderson and that staff are going to start really, basing things on production and playing that, really going in full with that youth movement and looking toward the future? Is that something that you kind of took away from on Wednesday night?
Yeah, I think so. I've written a lot about Reggie. I think Reggie needs more minutes. Like, I think before the Missouri game, Reggie was 3rd among Arkansas's forwards. Like when you're talking about, aside from Daniel, so Adria was playing the most minutes. Gabe was 2nd. Reggie was 3rd. That's kind of crazy. And the production is almost reversed. The minutes that I feel like those guys should be getting. But yeah, I feel like you run with Reggie more. And like the 2 games that he started, he hasn't played a whole lot because he didn't start the game well. I think if Mike sticks with him a little bit and just lets him grow through some of those struggles, like if he has a bad defensive possession or a bad 4 or 5 minute stretch, like stick with him, let him grow, let him grow through the struggles that he's having. It's going to make him a better player. I think that's the same can be said with like those bench guards like Desi and Keyshawn. They're not going to learn unless they're out there on the floor. Instead of just like if Keyshawn misses a shot, sometimes I notice that he'll be pulled from the game almost immediately. Let those guys grow through it. And I mean, you got to play beyond your years, and you've got to show some maturity late in the year. I think that can only happen if you put them on the floor and just kind of let them grow through the struggles that they're having.
I agree. Good point. And last question, before I let you go, we've got about a minute and a half. Scotty, in your opinion, in the game tomorrow, who's going to be your featured player and why?
It's going to be whoever is defending Jarrett Culver. I imagine that would probably be, if I had to guess, I would say Mason or Isaiah. He's kind of I looked at his KenPom page. He's kind of a small forward / shooting guard, like 6'6" wingman. And, I wrote today in that scouting report that I wrote, he's really good at making defenders, like getting defenders off balance with dot fakes and jab steps and hesitations and stuff. So closeouts have to be pretty crisp. He's really good at pull-up jumper. He got a good handle. He can pull up on you and get to the rim. He's pretty good at getting to the foul line too. So I think it's probably going to be Mason, and I want to see Mason on the other end, see if he can kind of snap out of a shooting funk. I think he's like 3 for his last 20, so they could get him going. That'd be big.
Yeah, Mike said they're going to need him, and we always need you each and every week for the Fastest 40. You do a great job for us here on the Hill. But as always, my man, have a blessed weekend, and thanks for taking time out on OTH.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it, guys.
That was Scotty Borderland of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette giving us the 411 on the Fastest 40 and his keys to Arkansas's yet another big road test for this young basketball team in Lubbock, Texas versus the Texas Tech Red Raiders and coached by Chris Beard. But we also caught up last night with a couple of happy young Razorbacks, senior Malcolm Monk and sophomore post Taylor Thomas. Here's what they had to say post their big Alabama win.
You had a great game tonight. Just take us through the team's mindset in the game.
We just knew that, we had to come in and give it our all because, last year we was, 3 in how many losses? Yeah. So we knew that, we wanted or we needed to win this game, and we knew that we needed to come out harder because that's what people were expecting. Are we going to fumble? Are we going to excel? So we really responded really well together.
This is for both, but we can start with you, Mal. Just winning 3 straight in a row now, as a senior and everything that this team has been through. How much does it mean to continue this winning through the SEC?
It really feels amazing just to be a part of a team like this. Just seeing the growth in everybody, it really, uplifts everybody. And for those who's been here, with me throughout the course of the way, it's really a magical sight to be a part of. And I'm just ready to see what the outcome is going to be like.
It's very great to experience this because, we started this last year, so winning, and it's actually all the hard work is paying off. It feels great. We just got to keep going.
Is there kind of incentive to prove that the Tennessee victory was no fluke, that, you all are for real tonight to keep proving it?
Yeah, we're just going to keep proving them, proving people wrong. That's what we're here for, just to show everybody that we are coming. So
yeah, we just kind of have to stay humble and make sure we didn't dwell too much on that game, move on to the next one.
Also, the Alabama coach said that Tollefree keeps igniting y'all in the first, early in the game.
And welcome back. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. We come to you live each and every day, Monday through Friday, from 1 to 2 p.m. on KDSJ 479. And before we get to our real special featured guest, let me give a shout-out to our sponsors, as this would not be possible without you all. Lindsay & Associates, with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also too in Rogers. The Baymont Hotel, located at 735 South Shiloh Drive. And lastly, Locomotion. It's located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall. With that being said, let's get to the main thing. And the main thing, we're going to bring in Arkansas former defensive line coach, now new South Carolina defensive line coach, John Scott Jr. John, welcome to OTH, my man.
Hey, how we doing? Thanks for having me on, man.
Doing quite well. I know this week has been a very topsy-turvy week for you. A lot happened over a 24 to 48 hour period. Talk about that, and just what went into the reasons that you decided to, so to speak, go back home.
Well, you're right. It has been a crazy past week, but we talk about all the time with our players and kids, and the guys in that room that I had at Arkansas, and our mission and our standards and values about what does family mean. And this was an opportunity that just presented itself. I wasn't out looking for a job. Was very content at Arkansas, turning it into a championship team and continue to build upon the foundation that we had started within the D-line and the defensive tackle room. So I was excited about coming back. But, sometimes the good Lord will present an opportunity to you that you're not looking for. It just comes up, and this was one of those opportunities, and it was a really hard decision. My wife has a great job at the University of Arkansas, and she loves her work. She works with, she's a sports psychologist, and she works with other teams, and so we had a really comfortable living here in Fayetteville. But this was just an opportunity too great to pass up. It puts me really close to my kids, the closest I've been to them in a long time. With one of my jobs that I'll be able to, instead of seeing them maybe twice in a season because I'm so far away at Arkansas, I'll be able to get them twice a month. And that's a big deal to me. And my son John starts high school next year. Having the ability to recruit where he's at, that area, which will allow me to be able to get to more of his games. And my daughter's playing basketball, and she's in track, and she'll be in the 8th grade. So, God worked it out, and, it's just a blessing in that regard. And don't get me wrong, I was really sad to leave because I have a great, great, great room of young men. And I love those guys, and they'll always be my guys, But and Coach Morris was really good to me, giving me the opportunity to stay and transition, and so that was really hard because I do believe they're going to do great things here. But just the opportunity to come home, be closer to my dad. He's not getting any younger. My brothers and my sisters. It was just too great to pass up, and Coach. Muschamp gave me a great opportunity to do that, and I'm honored and I'm excited. Growing up in Greer, about 90 miles from Columbia, you either root for two teams in South Carolina. It's either Clemson. You're either a Tiger or you're a Gamecock, and I like the Gamecocks. I went to a lot of the games my senior year. We played our state championship game in Williams-Brice Stadium, so I understand the passion and the pride that all people in the Carolinas they have for that university, and so being able to go back and I didn't get an opportunity to play there, but coach there and leave your mark on a great program and be with another great defensive mind with Coach Muschamp and Tavares Robinson was really hard. I've been very blessed. My past 3 stops to work with great defensive-minded coaches with Coach Bowles, who's now the defensive coordinator with Tampa Bay, and John Chavis, the defensive coordinator at Arkansas. I mean, great defensive minds, and I get an opportunity to work with Coach Muschamp and Coach Tavares Robinson. So I'm very excited about that opportunity and the opportunity to be closer to home.
John, talk about your previous 2 years in the SEC. I know it's your first time, in the SEC as a coach. What have you learned that you'll take with you to South Carolina? As what makes the SEC what it is, in your opinion?
Well, I have a saying that I say all the time: you got the AFC, the NFC, and the SEC. so I learned right now, man, the SEC is all about, number one, you better have some Jimmys and Joes, okay? You've heard that before.
Right.
But number two, I mean, you got great coaches in this league. Great coaches in this league. And so you got the great coaching, you better have great players. Because if you don't, it's really hard to win in this league. I mean, this is, and not only do you need to have a great 11 players on both sides of the ball, you better have some backups.
Right.
Because they're going to have to play. This is a physical league. This is a tough league, and you better have backups. Your backup better be able to come in the game and compete at a high level. Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to sustain in a game, and that's what happens. And I've just learned this league. It is great coaching, but it's also great players. And I think you gotta really recruit. You gotta have great players, and obviously the coaching is there. So you better really be recruiting, and you got to be developing the kids that you have, and the backups have to be able to come in and contribute.
John, Arkansas got you from the NFL with the New York Jets. And I know through rumors you were up possibly to be the defensive line coach there at Cleveland. I think you were scheduled for an interview today as we speak. How hard was that, John, not to test the NFL waters and stay in the SEC in college football? Was it just that too great, to be in the SEC to move on?
Well, you're right. I did. I had a great opportunity to go back to the NFL this year with Cleveland, and there was another team involved as well. But I'm going to be honest with you. Once South Carolina called and said that they were they were interested, really pulled me away. Because I believe in what we're doing at Arkansas. I believe we can get it going. I would have been further away from my kids had I gone to Cleveland. My wife and I don't know anybody up there. We'd have been fine, but that's not where our heart was. And when this opportunity came, this one really tugged at me because it does put me really close to my kids. So, again, it's one of those deals where it's hard. Coaching in the SEC, I'm going to be honest with you, is really coaching in the NFL in a lot of ways because of the talent and the players that you're coaching. I mean, when I was with the Jets, I don't know how many SEC players we had on the roster. Well, kids that we wanted to draft out of this league. I don't have it in front of me, but I remember Coach Moore showing me in December a whole chart he had put together of all the SEC players that have been drafted the last 2 years in the first 3 rounds and compared to the other conferences, and it's ridiculous. Nobody else is even close. I mean, it's not even close. And we just, and then you break it down by defensive players, it's not even close.
Right.
So this league, in a lot of ways, is like coaching in the NFL because of the amount of players that come out of this league that go play on the next level.
Talking with John Scott Jr., a new defensive line coach at the University of South Carolina for the Gamecocks. John, if there's one message, and I got about a minute left, and I know you're on the road, so you got work to do. If there's one message you'd like to leave for the Arkansas fans and for these players that you coached here, what would that message be as we close it out?
I would tell them, just stay the course. Good thing, there's no microwave results in this business. It's all your results come through a process. Okay, you got to build that foundation, and you're gonna have to stay the course. And it's going to happen. Arkansas football is going to get back to where it needs to be. Look at the recruiting and how things are going with that, and that's where it starts. That's the foundation. Now you got to be able to develop it. I think you'll see the development this off season with Coach True and his staff, with the young guys that came in last year and some of our veterans. I think you'll see an improved product next year, but you got to stay the course. It's not going to be microwave results, but I think you'll be proud of what you have, the end product, if we just stay the course.
Well, John, as always, we'll keep in touch, my man. You have a blessed
Absolutely,
day.
Man.
Congratulations,
Absolutely.
my man, on getting a chance to go home. And thanks for taking time out on the hill, my brother.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
That was new defensive line coach of South Carolina. South Carolina. It's kind of hard, Demetrius, when it's not John Scott in Arkansas, but new defensive line coach John Scott Jr. of South Carolina. John, when you think about it, Demetrius, listening to Coach Scott, you have to go home. It's all about family over everything. You'll see a lot of my tweets with FOE. When you get that opportunity, your dad's 5 hours away, sister's 2 hours, brothers, you got, sons going in high school, daughters in junior high. He had to go home, and I know it might have, been a lot. I think, when you leave a program in the SEC and go to another, maybe this fan base might have been a little agitated, but I think after understanding and getting a chance, Demetrius, to listen to what Coach said, I think that makes it a little easier, don't you think?
Definitely. It always feel a little better when you can kind of explain your perspective on the decisions you make. Not that you owe anybody an explanation, but the simple fact that you can let people know that you didn't leave on bad terms. It wasn't not the right fit. It was just a better situation for him to be a father to his kids, and I think at the end of the day, you're always going to choose your family over business. You know, well, I know I will. I know that's my decision.
Every day, and then twice, 3 times, 4 times on Sunday. Family over everything. And when you get this opportunity, you know, my hat's off. He's a great coach. He's going to do great things. John Scott, you mark my word, will be a head coach really, really soon. There might be some good stuff involved for some people. I won't say who, but just might be. But we caught up, and there's a big question going around. How will Connor Nolan be divvied up between baseball and football? And we caught up with Coach Dave Van Horn. That question was posed to him, and here's what Dave had to say. And then following Dave Van Horn, we're going to catch up and talk more SEC and South Carolina football with our good buddy Will Gunner of the Spurs and Feathers. He'll be up next. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Back in a bit.
Practice and 2019 team, and then we'll open up for questions.
Yeah, the first 4 or 5 days of workouts have gone really well. It's what we can do legally right now is work out in groups, and we have limited hours as far as baseball related skill. Pitchers have been throwing a lot of bullpens. We feel like that the pitchers did a good job over the holidays, sticking with the plan and building their arms up. It's not like they just come in here and we start. They've got some downtime in the fall, but really around the 1st of December, they start building up, and really it's about 6 weeks out that they've been throwing now, and plus the bullpens here. And so when we get on the field as a full team Friday the 25th, the plan was to scrimmage that day, but due to the weather, it's a little chilly. We're going to just move our scrimmages back. We'll have a light regular practice, maybe a shorter practice in the cold weather outside on the 25th. That's planned right now. And then Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, we will scrimmage. It's supposed to be a lot better, so we just pushed everything back, and then we'll try to get back on track next weekend, and then the next weekend, and then that leads us into opening the season. And we just really tried to get our weekend starters, our projected weekend starters, online on track by pitching the day that we're thinking about pitching. For example, Campbell's going to throw on a Friday. We'll throw him Saturday, then we'll throw him next Friday, and he'll throw the next Friday, and then he'll be ready to go. So position player-wise, a lot of swings, getting in shape that way. Obviously, we've been lifting and doing a lot of running and fielding anything we can. Thank goodness for that indoor facility over there, although we won't have access to it this weekend on Friday and Saturday due to track, and that's fine. That's the agreement. When it was built, they had a few weekends that so we'll have it again on Sunday. But it's gone good. The only injury is Caleb Bolden. That injury happened after fall ball ended, before the Christmas break. It wasn't thrown very well, and I think he had some irritation for a while. I was throwing a bullpen and basically walked off and said my elbow hurts, and we got it looked at. And he had Tommy John surgery a couple weeks later. When they got in there, just giving you some detail, they said this has been hurt for a long time. Had scar tissue in there, and he ended up completely tearing it, which sometimes that's fine. You're going to get it fixed, and we'll have him back next year. He'll be ready to go for the 2020 season. Other than that, we look like we're in pretty good shape.
He's going to be able to play in the field opening day, or will he be a DH?
I think he'll be able to play in the field. There are some limitations there, obviously. Cold weather hasn't helped any. That shoulders, they tightened it up, and they tightened it, and pretty good. So routine ground balls, turn double plays, fine. Going to his right. A little bit of an issue making that throw right now, but and maybe a relay throw, and we're going to set up our defense differently on relays with him out there, which we will work on this weekend. So he looks good, though, fielding the ball, turn double play, plate disciplines, hitting, obviously in batting practice. I'm looking forward to getting him out there in a game situation this weekend.
Ian Nesbitt, who you're looking at second.
Yeah.
Welcome back. It's the A edition. It's our Friday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio as we come to you live each and every day here on KDSJ 479 Monday through Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. And we're going to continue on as we talk all the SEC athletics. And there's a hot place going on. New coach involved, and he just happened to arrive in Columbia, South Carolina. And we thought we'd catch up with our good buddy to talk even more about that new hire of Spurs and Feathers, Will Gunner. Will, welcome to the Hill, my man.
Hey, good to hear from you, man. Hope y'all are off to a good start this year.
Oh, yeah, it's been a great start of 2019, but we'll want to get into it. You guys and Will Muschamp just hired former Arkansas defensive line coach, now new defensive line coach there at South Carolina, John Scott Jr. Talk about that and, just what type of impact do you think Coach John Scott will have on the South Carolina defensive line in next season?
Well, I think that's what everybody wants to know and what the impact will be. I can tell you he's not the first option for Will and for what they wanted to hire. I know Bo Davies, who originally was at Alabama, but I think had some NCAA baggage from some recruiting issues, was a guy that they wanted to hire and couldn't do it. Marion Hobby, who was formerly with the Jacksonville Jaguars, another guy that they wanted to hire. Deron Reynolds, the defensive line coach at Stanford, was a guy that I think they probably waited a little bit too late on. Deron Reynolds actually was a native of South Carolina, and I thought that was going to end up being the guy, but they settled on John Scott Jr., who's originally from Greer, South Carolina, young guy, 43 years of age, and I think there's a lot of people who will be interested to see how he does on the recruiting trail. South Carolina, this particular class is loaded for South Carolina, both in the state of South Carolina and even some of the guys that they're currently in Georgia and in North Carolina. And so I think a lot of people are going to want to see what kind of relationship he can build with five-star prospects Desmond Evans and Jordan Birch. Desmond Evans from North Carolina, Jordan Birch from literally about 10 minutes from South Carolina's campus, and it'll come down to South Carolina or Clemson for him. And then there's a few other high-level four-star guys, Alex Hunley from, again, right here in Columbia, and a young man, Tonka Hemingway from down in the low country, down in near the beach, Conway, South Carolina. So I think that's what everybody's real interest is, obviously, until we get to the season and we see the defensive line. How does John Scott Jr. approach recruiting, and what kind of relationships can he build, and can he be a difference maker on the recruiting trail for the Gamecocks?
You said recruiting's gone quite well. That's always the lifeblood when you talk about SEC football. In the way too early outlook, Will, I've thought about 2 years from now, you're going to see big-time parity with so many schools having great coaches and recruiters at their institutions. Talk about, in your estimation, how much longer are we away from truly having what we call parity at its finest in the SEC, where every school has a chance to win the SEC and possibly move on into that Final Four playoff?
Well, that's a good question. Honestly, I think we're pretty far away. To be honest with you, I think that you've had a couple. So you look at across the country right now. I mean, whether it's because of conference or because of recruiting or whatever you want to listen to, right now there's three programs that have completely separated themselves from the rest of the country, and that's Alabama, Clemson, and Oklahoma.
Right.
And I know it's strange to throw Oklahoma in there, but Oklahoma's been in 3 of the last 4 college football playoffs. I think 3 out of the last 4, maybe 3 out of the last 5, I can't remember. But, Oklahoma's surprisingly in there. Now, they never get to the championship game. They get blown out. I guess Georgia only beat them by 3 in overtime last year, but they've kind of had some hard times when they've been in these playoff games. Clemson clobbered them a couple years ago, and Alabama got them this year. But and then I think you see a couple schools, Ohio State, obviously the transition to Ryan Day is going to be very interesting, but, Ohio State and Georgia are kind of right there behind it. I see what Georgia's done. You mentioned recruiting. And you look at the SEC, and I still think it's just so hard. I mean, it's just hard. You look across the board, and South Carolina, Arkansas is a good example. I think Arkansas is a couple points ahead of South Carolina in the recruiting rankings, but that's because Arkansas's got 28 commitments. South Carolina's got 20 or 21. You have this good class. It's a top 20 class nationally, but in the SEC, it's 7th or 8th, 9th. You got to have good coaches. You have to have coaches on your staff that can get. I don't want to say marginal players because that's not fair, but can really coach the guys up when they get on campus. That was big. But Steve Spurrier had it going here. When they were winning 11 games, it wasn't because South Carolina was raking in top 10 classes. It's because they were taking guys like DJ Swearinger, who was a 3-star recruit, and Devin Taylor, and Connor Shaw, and they were developing those guys. And then you would land an elite player here or there, the Marcus Lattimore, the Alshon Jeffrey, the guy that goes with Stephon Gilmore. But you have to coach the guys up you have on campus, and then you hope you win enough games to maybe attract some of those elite level difference makers.
Got about a minute and a half left, Will, and I'm going to ask you a quick question. In your opinion, who are 2 players to watch during this spring ball coming up there in Columbia, South Carolina, that you're going to keep an eye on that may have a real big impact on the outlook and just the outcome of 2019 campaign there in Columbia?
I think there's a lot. I mean, you said quick question. That's a loaded question. I mean, I don't know if they have a big impact. I think everybody wants to see Ryan Holinsky, the new quarterback recruit. Jake Bentley was up and down this year, was great at the end of the season, and then absolutely stunk the last 6 quarters of in the bowl game. It was 2 quarters against Akron and kind of the make-up game in the 4th quarter. So I think people want to see that. I don't know if there's players, there's position groups, because, again, quarterback position, defensive line is going to be fascinating. South Carolina's ripped shreds this year by injuries, but also the defensive line. And there's talented players there, John Scott Jr. and Harris. So I think those 2 positions the most. I don't know about specific players. South Carolina returns a bunch of players. They need to get them healthy. Will be the big thing.
Good point. Well, as always, we'll love having you on. We'll talk here in a couple of weeks and get caught up with more South Carolina basketball and football as well. But as always, have a blessed weekend, buddy, and thanks for taking time out on the hill.
Y'all too. Take care, Pat. Good talking to you.
That was Will Gunner of Spurs and Feathers. I'm talking more John Scott, South Carolina football, recruiting, all tied up into one. This has been a great this has been a great Friday show. And Demetrius, I'm going to bring you in real quick. It was posed yesterday. I got a question. They asked about Connor Nolan. And Dave Van Horn said, Coach Hobbs really likes him. He and Coach Morris have divided a plan. If there's a red-white game and Arkansas's baseball team's playing, then he's going to play in the baseball game, because Connor has a chance, from all intents and purposes, to be one of the weekend starters. The new head coach, Coach Hobbs, really likes Connor. Connor, I think, is going to eventually matriculate down to the baseball diamond. I think that's where he's going to make his big bucks. But, just the fact that they've communicated and tried to come up with a plan that's best going to suit Connor. Now, mind you, Connor's going to have to really be communicative with both staffs and programs during this time. But, what's your take on that? Is that a good thing that you're able, the baseball and football coach can sit down and try to come up with the best plan devised for this young athlete?
Oh, definitely. To me, it really shows the epitome of a student athlete, and the coaches that care about the student athlete, giving him the best position to excel in both football and baseball, because I think that's where the true heart of a coach really shows. Coach Morris could be on that selfish side where, oh no, Connor, don't go play baseball. If you play baseball, you can't play football. But I just like the fact that they're allowing this kid to really use his talents for both sports and to potentially go to that professional level. I think that's amazing that both coaches are really trying to find some middle ground to really make this thing happen.
Well, I know